Hello everyone, welcome back to my second round recap of the Pakistan Chess Olympiad team for the nationals. This is round two of the Olympiad, and in this video we will be looking over the Pakistan women's team's match with South Africa, as you can see, and then later on we'll be looking at the Pakistan men's matchup against Qatar, and all eight games are incredibly interesting. I'm trying to give you as much feedback as I can. Apologies of my last video; it was extremely scuffed. I didn't do that well of an analysis. I'll try to do better this time. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. Apologies. Now, we're going to start off with Seba Shah, who is the national champion, versus February Just Nikki. And this game started off e4, c5, d4, immediately looking to try to break home the center. Takes, knight c3, queen e3. This is a line I've actually seen be played at my level. I'm around 1700, Chess Rapid. And I'm not saying that they know the theory that well, but this is a move we prepared. But I just generally don't like this opening. I think it's just really scuffed, and I personally don't think that white gains much of an advantage here. So, best move. I'm pretty confident they all know the best moves up to this point. And we're not going to analyze the opening too deeply because most of it's just the same. And we get to around this setup where it's mostly like black's a little passive, but white has castled long. So if black decides to castle short, maybe they can put some pressure. Also, by the way, I just realized this yesterday, but if you notice, Seba Shah is literally playing on a wheelchair. Like, I'm not joking. Like, she literally, she has, I think, a muscle degenerative disease that literally, like, prevents her from, I think, moving normally. So she literally has to sit on the wheelchair and play. All I'm gonna say is this: how on planet Earth, like, she has to be one of the strongest people I know. Like, to be playing at an elite level despite this. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of the Mikhail Tal story. Do you know how Mikhail Tal, the former world test champion of Pakistan? Sorry, not Pakistan, what am I saying? The former world test champion, he literally had a congenital hand defect. He had three fingers on his right hand. And this kind of reminds me of that, like playing like without even being able to have a proper chair. And without walking. It's an extraordinary feat, and honestly, the fact she's even here is a testament to her strength. So kudos to her. Long castle, short castle. So now what I would be doing here is I would be trying to launch the attack with the a pawn, try to open up the king. So knight d2, d6, Seba looking to solidify the center. And one other thing I really admire about Seba is that she doesn't really spend a lot of time. Like, you see here, like, two pawns have just been given up. But watch how she manages to sort of create some level of complication. Knight c5, knight d4, knight takes, pawn takes, and now you could already see here that even though from a practical perspective this might be a little better for white, it's still nowhere near enough. And just like that, you can very quickly start to see problems. The dark squares are weak, this knight is a little loose, the knight is pretty dangerously close to the king and nothing can really displace it. The knight on d4 I'm talking about, the bishop on d6, and the rook on c8, they're all pressuring the knight, and it really seems like this +1 advantage the computer is claiming doesn't really feel existent anymore. Knight e2, knight to b5, f3, and believe it or not, here it's almost a draw. We were +3 at one point, and the game has turned from completely winning for white to equal in the span of just 4, 5, like maybe maximum 10 turns. I mean, it's incredible how these are the difference between the best players. Bishop b4, the fact she even played this like in just 2 seconds almost, like 6 seconds maybe. It's such a badass move. You can't even take the bishop because you're pinned, and like you're just stockpiling pressure. Even if it's not the best move, it just looks so badass to play it. So now h5, completely what I would play here. Well done. Rook f3 to defend, and to be fair, now she starts to encounter into problems. If I were her, I would have just played king f2. I really would have played this. I would have given up this pawn, just because like this position just looks terrifying. Like it looks terrifying to play as white. You're barely hanging on to this pawn, and like anything that white does, it like yeah, you can play king b7, but then your bishop h6. I would not feel comfortable here, even if it says +3. I wouldn't feel as if it's +3 at all. So rook h d1, and she chose to play it like this, and unfortunately, despite her big mistake, unfortunately was okay. I skipped at the end. That's rather rude of me. I'm sorry. Like these past few days, these videos have been so scuffed. But we get to see the critical mistake is allowing this pawn through. This pawn should not have been allowed to capture, and she went for this, which was the best move, but in my honest opinion, she needed to like find a way to get rid of this pawn. I don't care if the Indian evaluation gives +5, because +5 can still be blundered. To be very honest, if there's no practical human way to convert it, if I were her, I would have gone rook d8, d6, and like if she tries to go d7, like you can even take. To be very honest, I don't think that's a good move. Rook e7. Bishop f5, I really don't care. King g8. Let's say that she plays like rook d2. Now we can take rook g2, this and this, and I would just say this rook keeps an eye on this pawn. That's all I would really want. Keep an eye on this pawn, make sure nothing happens. So bishop f5 check, king g8, and now the pawn sneaks through. And she gives a couple of desperado checks, but it's hopeless, and soon she just loses the entire house of pieces. Overall, compared to last game where she like blundered the tactic, this seemed like a much more fighting kind of game, in my opinion. Like she had definitely had chances. She was just outplayed, and when you're playing against a 2000, it's very hard to gain the win here. I mean, the fact she even managed to recover so well here, I think, is a testament to strength. And also look at the time spent. Like by the end of this game, she still had a whole hour left. Now I don't know if that's like a genetic problem. Like maybe she can't spend time, maybe because of her condition. I'm not meaning to say that insultingly. I just mean that maybe I don't know why she's not spending time, because a normal human here would definitely be spending more time in certain positions. Or maybe it's just her nature. Maybe she just wants to play with no time on the clock. Maybe that's just her. So I don't know. I would prefer her to spend more time, but if that's how she enjoys chess, then so be it. I mean, it nearly worked today, to be honest. Like before this +5 and like this pawn sneaking through to d6 and eventually queening, not queening, sorry, eventually losing the rook in like this position. She was actually doing quite well. Like she was defending herself. So kudos to her. I think she played well. I can't really ask for anything more. In the next game, we have Chloe Vanderhorst versus Zenobia Vasif. And this game was quite the spectacle. So we have a Karo Khan, the advanced variation, c5. I think bishop f5 is the main line, but c5 is also a very nice move. One of the main lines too. c3, knight f3, knight c6, and so far everything is going according to theory. Nothing out of the ordinary. And we actually get to see the first blunder happen from South Africa, from Baderhorst, from bishop g5. And I guess her logic with bishop g5 was that she wanted to attack this pawn and put some pressure, maybe force white to capture, and like she's threatening some, maybe like she's threatening some stuff, like maybe she thought if this, she has this, maybe king d2 and this. I guess that's what she calculated, and she just probably thought it was equal. But after this is a huge blunder, because after takes, and not even taking, this isn't checkers. She plays queen d3, defending her pawn. And now it really seems like the black bishop here is just locked out of the game. It has no purpose. Rook a3 again tried to continue the attack, and so far Zenobia is just absolutely dominating this game. Wonderful stuff. Takes, and she sacrifices her queen. This is one thing I have to give respect to Chloe for. She literally sacked the queen in this tournament. And after takes, bishop f6 and b4. We're all fully expecting Zenobia to win this game. And I was expecting it too. I was like, oh my god, we're going to actually win this game. Let's go. But things fall apart very quickly as in this position she played a move and completely blundered her advantage. To be fair though, sacking the rook is a very unreasonable move. Though I can see it, like just for the sake of simplification. Like if this, like maybe I would play here to attack the pawn c5 and like then here. Like I can kind of see it, but this allows this check and now we are slowly starting to see the position fall apart and I think he just missed the fact her rook is hanging because it soon becomes very apparent that she can't save it and just like that the whole position falls apart. Honestly, like a very tough game. A very tough game because if anyone deserved to win that game, it was 100% Zenobia. Like she literally outplayed her opponent in this opening from start to finish. And she was completely winning, but she just didn't really calculate the repercussions of bishop takes. I think she just calculated, oh, I'm losing a pawn, but I'm still up 2 points of material. But as we saw, the ramifications were much bigger, and she quite literally lost all of her pawns and all of her pieces. And I feel bad because this is one of those defeats you don't just shrug off. You don't just say, "Oh, I lost. It's fine. Let's move on." This like really hurts. I think, and I think one more like it was a calculation mistake. I think maybe like blundering this rook, she thought that after this whole thing, she thought maybe that I can pick up this knight, but completely missed that the bishop is still protecting the knight. I think maybe that's what she miscalculated. She wanted to win back the knight this way, and then try to get a flurry of onslaught on the king, but just completely misjudged the fact. That's my prediction. I could very easily be wrong. Now we're moving on to Strong Davida versus Ayat Asmi. This was another extremely interesting game. So Davida played the French, and we get this very weird off structure. I don't know why. I know it's a top engine move, but personally for me, knight c3 just feels way more natural. G2 f3, but I don't know why Ayat didn't play it. Maybe she just didn't like the fact her position would be so cramped and her pieces would not be out, would not be able to get out on the king side. But I digress. I think the queen side is the more natural choice, but okay. She's essentially playing like an engine, and what I've clearly noticed is that a lot of these players they get good positions. Like this wasn't a game where they were just bullied and destroyed off the board. We can very clearly tell that they were winning in a lot of these games. And yes, she eventually succumbs to this tactic, but it's still equal for the most part. And the fact that they're able to get positions like this against 2000s in classical over the board games and like they're running them out on the clock, like they're playing fast, shows me that Pakistan has tons of potential when it comes to this kind of stuff. We should not be like sacrificing our youngsters to like to pursue other career paths. Like, of course, they can pursue if they want to, but we should still be like offering these camps for them, to train and to actually be allowed to play chess because they clearly can pull off some very insane things. And we can start to slowly, see the ramifications. I think the big mistake here was her taking. I think taking was a big mistake because she just essentially allowed her opponent to like, okay, let's just play like a whatever move. I'm just gonna demonstrate an idea. A6 with the logic being that this b5. Okay, not immediately, of course, but there is some kind of idea. Like, I know right now it doesn't make sense, but let's just hypothetically say like the queen was on b8, the king was on h1, then does b4 work? b4 still doesn't work because of rook takes c7. Huh, interesting. Queen b6, rook c7, what about g6? Knight g4, b2. Yeah, I guess the pawn's never actually making it. So maybe it wasn't a threat. Maybe I was completely incorrect in my assessment. I don't really review and analyze these games too deeply. I just like try to analyze from my own perspective, but my own perspective is normally completely wrong, as proven here. But I think just allowing this 3 on like 1 is just it's just asking to get murdered. And very quickly she loses 2 pawns, and things go from bad to worse. She does try, in her credit, to try to target the king, like maybe create some kind of imbalance. And here I'm a little shocked as to why she didn't go for this. Oh, I'm an idiot. It's just rook g8. So maybe like she could have played like king f2, and like let's say black just plays like a waiting move, like h3 or something. Then can we take? Yeah, but it's still not winning. But I guess you could have tried something like this, but nothing was really good. And sooner rather than later, the position crumbles. And well, push comes to shove. I really like one aspect of Ayat is that she allows herself to get checkmated. She wants to learn from every game, and I think that will make her an invaluable asset. Like for the country, like for in these kind of tournaments, you have to play against the stronger players and just allowing them technique. Showing them how they beat you is the way you learn how to get better. As a wise man once said, the only way to become better or smarter is to play a smarter opponent, and that's exactly the lesson for the women's team as well as the men's team. When you play someone smarter and better, just accept it and learn from it. And we get to the last game, which was MEHAK versus Classen Robin Julien. I cannot, I swear, I'm so bad at these games. So I'm gonna kind of fast forward this game because it really was a whole bunch of nothing, to be very honest. We got another Benoni. It seems like MEHAK has kind of prepared this, and we get this sort of trade very early on, bishop for knight, and Klassen tries to expand on the queen side, I think, but doesn't fully follow through with it. I guess maybe because of the Benoni structure. And to be honest, there weren't a whole lot of mistakes, but it was very clear that after knight before rook a2 that white had the superior space advantage and was clearly pushing for a better position. And that's exactly what happens. MEHAK once again sacrifices a piece, and she's just down 2 pawns, just like in the last game. I don't think MEHAK's strength is like the opening. I think her greatest strength comes from her defensive technique, and it's put on full display here for everyone to see, as she quite simply puts her opponent into a very annoying situation where they trade pieces and it's still completely winning, but it's not very clear how it's winning. Why is it winning? And after like queen f5, queen a2, and there's this very annoying b pawn, and the computer is just blocking it, which is, in my opinion, what I would have done. I would have just said, this is annoying, but then MEHAK might have had threats of like bishop. Oh, I'm an idiot. It's offering a queen trade. I thought it was just to block the pawn, but maybe something like queen d6 followed with bishop f5. I'm honestly proving myself as an amateur right now. Like, it's so bad. But what's incredibly funny is that Klassen just never relinquishes her winning position. And what I find shocking is why, I'm really sorry, why didn't Klassen just trade queens here? Wouldn't oh my god, I'm just flip-flopping between their profiles. Bruh, let me watch the games. I'm really sorry. We're going back, Pakistan, and we're going back to the MEHAK game. I was analyzing where. Yeah, let's just fast forward to the part I was showing. Why didn't she take and just go rook d8? Yes, you can argue this bishop d4, but then there's d6 and takes. I guess she was worried she wouldn't be able to win this endgame, because if you just trade all the pawns, rook and bishop is always a draw. So I guess she was worried about that, but I don't see exactly how you win if you're not going to go for that. And I guess there the player just accepted a draw. I'm not sure if Mihak offered the draw here or Klasen did, but I think overall it's a good result for Mihak. Defending a position like this, like which is very clearly worse for you, but she used the strength she had. She used the past B pawn. She used, the advancement, and more importantly, she traded pieces at the right time. I think this rook trade was super important because it allowed her this past B pawn, and she used it to full extent. So credit to her. She draws this game, and against a slightly higher rated opponent, she gains I think 2 rating points. So that's always a good thing. Now we're moving on to the men's side of things. We are moving on to the open matches, and we are moving on to Team Pakistan for the men's. I'll go over each game individually. First, let's start off with Mudassir Iqbal versus Al Kuwari Turki. And I was really nervous when I actually saw we got paired against Kuwait, to be very honest. I was really nervous because I thought for sure, because every single one of them, apart from one I am, who's 2340, is like 18, 15, 16 years old. And so I was really scared that we were going to get blown off the board. These are some underrated kids who are just going to destroy us. Like, I was really worried. I was still confident we could win, but I was really getting concerned. But my worries were not to fruition. So Mudassir plays the Sicilian, and he plays the Dragon. And again, Mudassir is, I think, just a fan of like weird setups that don't really involve any theory, because there is nothing theoretical about this structure at all. Maybe like Stockfish will say it, but at this level, I just don't think there is. And White makes the mistake very early on. You see, like, I think from White's perspective, White really wanted to win this game. White wanted to get an advantage for their team. And when Mudassir was just playing in the center, h5 was played, which is already a mistake in my opinion. If you want to attack the king so desperately, get rid of this bishop by doing something like knight e2, which is worse, but like at least here, like after takes, f4, like here maybe you can like create some complications. Like maybe here, like if Mudassir allows it, like you can create some kind of crazy complication. But I just don't understand what the move h5 does. Like, Mudassir doesn't even take, even though I think taking is completely fine in my opinion. Is it? No, it isn't. Because it allows this pin. Ah. So, I guess then it's not really a... h4 is then more like a trick move. Like, oh yeah, if someone like me were playing the Olympiad, then yes, I would take. And to be honest though, why would I even take? What am I? My chess skills are so off right now. Why would I even take opening up the king? Wouldn't I want to defend my king right now? So, of course, Mudassir is not me. He's not an idiot. He doesn't open his king. And instead, he just calmly takes the pawn and plays f4. And now, all of a sudden, this position is very bad. Because even though it looks like black is overextended, black has every right to overextend in this position. Because their pieces are just going to be literally 2 minutes away from the king. Knight f5, he sacrifices the bishop. And here it simply resigns. Because after takes, you just win the queen. And let's say you don't take, there is no real way you can defend the queen anyway. So he just blundered a very simple tactic here, which I guess happens, but for me the big mistake was just allowing this avalanche, because knight f5 was already the beginning of the end. Like, if you did nothing, like, I'm just gonna make a hypothetical. Let's say you played this. This comes in. The queen will, let's just say you do nothing again. I'm just playing random moves. Then the bishop will come in. Let's say you do nothing again. Then like the queen will come in. Oh, sorry, no, not there. I'm an idiot. Probably the queen to d2. And now you have a queen, a knight, a bishop, and a rook on the rook on f8 is participating, by the way. F3 is still a threat in my opinion. So let me just check if it's actually good. Here, f3. Yeah, f3 is still winning. It can be booted out with g3, but it is a threat. And you can't even really take this because of queen g4. Which just goes to show you, black was always like the one in control here. And this bishop on d4, sorry, on d4, it was always a big nuisance because white could never move the f pawn. So white should have just simply understood that, and I think h5 was already a step in the wrong direction, but he still had chances to make it right. But just allowing this f4, f5 idea was already bad news. And Pakistan are 1-0 up. The men's team are 1-0 up. Now we move on to Momin Faizan. And what's interesting is that they play a Roy Lopez, which turns into a Berlin. I don't think Berlin means much, to be very honest. Like, yeah, for Super GMs it's a draw, but how many of us are Super GMs? And quite early on, Momin had the ideal perfect position. Two pawns in the center, knights about to be developed, bishops about to be developed, rooks are on the center line. Like, it's nearly the ideal position, you think. Like, yes, like, black is attacking on, like, the queen side, but even a move like d5 would just stop him, and that's exactly what Momin does. And suddenly, all black is playing with his pawns. And very quickly, I know the engine is saying inaccuracy, inaccuracy this, inaccuracy that, but like no one is gonna play a perfect game, no one. And from my perspective, this was a complete perfect game. Like just Momin like completely neutralizing this attack. Let's watch how he does it again. Like he just straight up plays d5, and when like black tries to get aggressive, he shuts it down again, and then like he purposefully he provokes white to push a4, otherwise he will lose his pawn, and white really does not want to play a move like rook a8 because half of your pieces will then be just stuck on the back rank, and that's not very good. Your queens and your rooks are just stuck here while Momin is preparing to destroy you. It doesn't seem very pleasant at all. So he forces him to lock all, and then he goes for his attack. He brings in the rooks, he rook lifts, he trades the bishop because he understands there's no danger to his position, and he plays f4 and just straight up bullies him. This is like we need a parental advisory warning. Like this is straight up disgusting behavior. And look at this guy, fancy smancy. Look at him. Like this, he doesn't even take back. He just takes the queen because after takes check, and like if you take, there is queen and both your pieces are forked essentially. You can play knight f6, but then I just take the knight anyway, and you resign. This game made me really proud of Momin, to be honest. Even though he's only playing against like a 1500, this made me really happy. It showed me that he still has that same attacking, dynamic flair that he always had. Like just a bullying game. Completely neutralizing the queenside attack, like proving it to be completely useless, and then just massacring him on the queen side, on the king side, massacring him. Absolutely destruction on every fundamental level. Great game from him. Next up, we are going to go for FIDE Master Amir Karim versus Irfan Muhammad Firdaus. This game, oh god, how do we even describe this game? Literally had me. This reminded me why I absolutely hated and loved being a fan of the Pakistan cricket team. I also watch cricket sometimes. I'm a fan of their cricket team, and this reminded me why I absolutely loved their cricket team and why I absolutely hated them. And spoiler alert, this game was so messy. d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3. Ragozin was played by Amir, who then turns it into a Benoni. And very quickly early on, you have this very tense battle in the center. And you'll notice Amir kicks the bishop out, danger levels. He's clearly been watching Gotham Chess. Bishop back, and you start to notice very early on that white is starting to get some really big initiative. And here Amir already makes his first mistake. It's a very minor mistake, but it does lead to the trapping of the bishop. I guess Amir did think that after takes, apparently the engine doesn't even want him to take, it wants him to go here. And after Amir goes back, the engine wants him to take on f2. and rook takes f2 will allow knight takes e4. So h takes, sorry, f5, bishop. I'm going to review the top line just to try to explain what it means. This, bishop d6, fg, and apparently king h1 because rook h2 would run into this bishop. And I guess that's losing. So Amir was losing, but his opponent spent too little time and just played queen f3 in like 5 minutes. Which, to be fair, he was already down like 20 minutes. I'm sure he didn't want to spend a lot of time. But it was a winning advantage. And Amir gets himself back into the game. It's still a little unpleasant with the queen this close. The rook and, like, let's just say black just plays a whatever move. I know, like, the engine is saying, like, this is the threat, but, like, even, like, if white sacrifices a rook, like, there is still theoretically the rook lift. So, there are always options, but that doesn't happen. And, Amir just trades everything. And for a second, I thought Amir was just going to draw this game and go home. But, that did not happen. And very quickly his opponent blundered with knight to a4. A move you literally play out of impulse. I can't describe this as anything else. It's just an impulsive move. Because, yes, and I guess white really only calculated queen c2 and was like, oh, well, black will just trade queens. Which is still worse for him, by the way. But I guess he just thought he'd survive. But Amir played a lot deadlier. He just played queen e3. And he just took a pawn, and now when you're a pawn up, it's a lot easier. Though you have to be careful though. These two pawns I'm pointing to right now, if they are allowed to get going, they can be extremely detrimental to the black position. And Amir neutralizes them the way a GM would. Rook f1 was played, queen d2, and now you see Irfan try to advance the pawns. But unfortunately, advancing does not help you here. Knight d7, knight g6 is a bit of a mistake to be honest, but he's essentially now forcing the fact that you can't play this now because both of your pawns are hanging. So after taking, rook is hanging obviously, rook d2, bishop f4, bishop d4, b6, g3, bishop e5, bishop e3, bishop d6, of course then they're giving exclamation marks all over, but to be very honest, I don't care. Like, he's just essentially, this is the way you should play, even if the engine doesn't agree, because it's the most practical. You're just blocking both of these pawns and making sure none of them can move at all. So, that's essentially the genius strategy behind Amir's supposed question mark moves, but it works. And now we get to a level where he takes his final mistake. Knight takes a7. I guess he felt like he had to win the pawn back now. Otherwise, he would just suffer in an endgame, which is true. But this just like, I guess this just isn't how you do it. And sacking the rook for the knight is not going to help you because, as we've already discussed, Amir will neutralize these pawns very easily, and he does exactly that. You see rook d2 threatening this pawn, rook d4 threatening the pawn, knight f4 defending the pawn, rook d1 now checking the king, rook d2 and takes e6 and this, and now this pawn is also going to queen. But to be very honest, even if he did not have this pawn, I still think he would have been able to stop both pawns. So kudos to Amir sir for a very well done game. Now we're moving on to the main event of the evening, ladies and gentlemen. International Master Aziz Hussain, the only 2300 from this entire section, versus national champion Mafaz Khalid. And this was a game where all hell broke loose. d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, bishop e7, bishop g5, h6. And we already got into this kind of structure, like, which is kind of like, I don't even really know, like, and black tries to expand on the queen side. Aziz is clearly trying to invoke a fight, and Mafaz lets him. He just lets him. He's like, I don't care. Okay, so be it. And here Mafaz plays the move g4 for reasons I cannot understand. I'm sure it's a good move, but I just can't understand the reason behind it. Maybe in the future he wants to go g4 and transfer one of his knights to the g5 square, bishop e7, knight g3, rook f to d8, and e4 is an inaccuracy, but personally I think this is a very good move. It just takes central space and makes his opponent incredibly uncomfortable. Knight f8, e5, and his opponent immediately gives the advantage back. I kind of figured it made him really uncomfortable. Queen e3, rook a to d7, h4, and clearly Mafaz has made his intention clear. He wants to attack on the king side and checkmate black. Black isn't stupid though, so he plays f6 and immediately tries to get rid of this center blob so he can activate some of his pieces to discard the attack. He's an IM after all, he's not just going to lay over and die. Knight h5 was played, and after takes, you can kind of feel the position, because even though yes it's a very powerful attack, there's no question about it, there's no real clear plan. And apparently the engine wanted rook f3. Oh, I'm sorry, I played rook takes c4. The engine wanted rook c3, and essentially after this the engine just wanted him to play rook d3 and just try to full on hammer this pawn. The engine wanted him to focus on black's weakness, but I guess Ahmed thought that was pointless because it's already well defended by the knight on f8, which is a very reasonable assumption to make. So you may ask then, what should Ahmed have done if not d5, which is the move he played in the game, which turned out to be the move which lost him the game. Very sad, I know. Not really for those of you who are against Pakistan. For those of you right now, you are laughing gleefully. Now, I'm sure, and I'm not referring to anyone in particular, I'm just referring to the people who just, are like, who just thrive of other people's suffering, and they're just like, oh, ha ha, you lost, and like they never accomplish anything in life themselves. I still would have preferred rook f3 because, like, let's say a move like b4 is played, which seems like a very reasonable move at times, because, okay, not immediately, let's say like a3 then, and g4, and then what about b4? You can kind of still see that the c pawn isn't defended, so a rook f3 is a very tough move, but d5 was not the answer because he plants both of his knights here almost instantly. You notice instantly. So he very clearly didn't think this was a blunder and clearly wanted to. This was his idea all along, but it very quickly becomes apparent what the flaw in the idea was. That by allowing his opponent to take, he has now not only created a 3 on 2, it's a 4 on 2. And these two pawns, the D and the C pawns, are going to march directly towards his king. And I guarantee you one of them is becoming a queen. G5, he tries to insinuate the attack, but it's no use, and unfortunately the attack fizzles out and turns into a bunch of nothing. To be fair, he still tried though. Like, there were still so many ways he could have lost his position, and there were certain like moments where like Aziz had to find the only move to win the position, and like everything else was drawing, but like he was never really in a situation where he wouldn't find those moves. He was always going to find them, and I really like the way Aziz ended it though. Like, yeah, like you notice, see here, like it's -5 only if he plays king e3, because any other king move would result in a fork of the king and the queen. Like Mafaz is still trying as always, but rook d8, and I really like the way he ends it. He ends it like this, sacrificing his queen to promote a new one, and the knight can't get back in time, so he just promoted queen, and Mafaz resigned. So we beat Qatar 3-1, and on an honest performance, the only performance I was slightly disappointed was by Mafaz, but even I can't blame him for fighting till the end and playing a move he still thought was right, because personally it looked really promising, it just didn't have any merit to it. And that just happens. Sometimes you just get unlucky in chess, and you don't calculate things all the way out. You try an intuitive tactic, and the intuition doesn't work out, and that's fine. He still played someone like 300 points higher than him, though, so I doubt that really matters to him right now. I think he's more than content being losing this game, especially if his teammates won the game. And Pakistan win 3-1 and gain their first point of their entire championship. And their next match, I think, in the men's side is against Kyrgyzstan, who pretty much have an IM on like the top 3 boards. So Mafaz, Amir and Momin will all be playing IMs who are like 2300, and then they have an FM which is like 2250. And Kyrgyzstan, I think, is their opponent. I cannot pronounce their name for the life of them. And for the women, my laptop is too slow, so I don't know, but I'll reveal it in the next video. So if you don't follow the Olympiad, I guess you can consider it a surprise or something. Like, to be honest, I don't know. Anyway, that's all for this video. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and just smash like if you liked the video. If I did a little better analysis, smash dislike if you didn't. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.